Happy Monday, everybody. We are coming at you live from Greenhouse Wellness. Today we have the fabulous Dr. Patricia Frye here, where we're going to absolutely pick her brain today. I know the patients are so excited to meet her. She's going to be here for a few hours signing her fabulous book, which we'll get to. So if you have questions or any comments, just go ahead and just write them to us, and the fabulous Sierra will let us know. So I'm going to dive right in. Patricia, welcome.
Yes,
I'm so glad you took the drive to get here today. Thank you for doing that and spending some time with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
So how in the world did you get into the cannabis space? Let's talk about your history.
Well, I'm actually a board-certified pediatrician, and I also trained in anesthesiology. I didn't practice anesthesia. I really trained to do pediatric intensive care. But long story short, I spent most of my medical career in California. When I did come back east, I still had an active California license. And even though I went to medical school and trained in Baltimore, my Maryland license had expired because I wasn't here. So I was looking for a telemedicine job out of California, looking actually for a pediatric, maybe urgent care or something. And so I put my CV out there. A recruiter called me about a medical marijuana evaluation job out of San Francisco. And my first response was, I don't know anything about
They didn't teach us that in medical school. What are you talking about, right?
Exactly. But, you know, the curiosity kind of got the better of me, and I said, well, let me look into it.
Yeah.
So I interviewed with the company. I liked the people. They seemed very straightforward, clean-cut, business-oriented. And I said, well, maybe I can learn something. And it really was such a blessing because it was a new company. So the patients there was a lot of time in between patients, so I had a lot of time to talk to each patient.
Got it. So you weren't rushed.
Exactly. And because these patients were in California, where cannabis has been legal since 1996, most of them were long-term patients, and I learned so much about how they used cannabis, and it dispelled a lot of my preconceived notions about who uses cannabis and why. So a lot of these patients were most of them were very highly functioning, a lot older than I anticipated.
Yes.
And they taught me how they used cannabis during the day and would not and could use it for their chronic pain and their arthritis.
Still be functional.
Not be stoned or impaired, which was news to me.
Right.
I didn't know that.
And you said some of them had advanced degrees, actually.
Yes.
That they weren't the patient population that you would have expected.
They were not at all. It ran the gamut for everyone from university professors, lawyers, doctors, restaurant owners, chefs, truck drivers, all walks of life. A lot of computer programmers, software developers, because of Silicon Valley. And a lot of these patients were treating not only chronic pain, but anxiety and depression, or insomnia, stress.
Yes.
And I remember when I first started, one patient said he used it for stress, and I was like, stress? I don't know if it treats stress, and sure enough it does. It actually does interrupt that stress response from the brain to the adrenal glands. But I just learned a lot, and so in between patients, I was on NIH's library website, pulling journal articles and reading anything I could find on this plant. So I did that for a year. And then in 2016, University of Vermont offered a professionally certifying a semester course in cannabis science and medicine. And I took that, and then I studied with other physicians and people in the industry. It was run through the Department of Pharmacy, through the medical school. So it was a really great experience, and I learned a lot about the ethnobotany of cannabis, a lot of things that I wouldn't necessarily have picked up, from reading journal articles or talking to patients. And at the end of the year, I felt like this was a pretty amazing plant, and that people should know about it, and it should be an option, and there should be people that can guide patients on how to use it, and not and sort of to avoid some of the what for some people would be adverse effects.
Right, some of the pitfalls.
Yeah.
And so obviously then you saw a need for a resource.
Yes.
And you decided to, when did you decide to actually write this book?
Well, that's kind of an interesting story. I had been thinking about putting something together as a guide for physicians, and especially for physicians who did not have experience with cannabis. Maryland was about to open, and it's sort of serendipitous how everything has happened. I received an email from a book agent who works with a publisher, and the publisher was interested in publishing a book on medical marijuana.
That is so cool.
So I responded to the email, sort of half expecting it to be kind of a scam.
Yeah, like a fake, what do you want out of me? Yeah.
How much do I have to pay,
exactly,
to write this book?
Right.
And it turned out that she was the agent for April Ryan and Sandra Day O'Connor, Barbara
Legit.
Lee. She was a former staffer for Jimmy Carter. Met with her and said okay, and it took me a year to put it all together, but lo and behold,
well,
there it is.
Guys, let me just tell you, I've scoured everything that is written that I can get my hands on, and I've watched webinars, and I've gone to conferences, and seriously, anything that's published that I can find from whatever language and from whatever country it's in, I've tried to get my hands on. But now, this has now usurped our training for our new wellness consultants. This is an absolutely, well, first of all, let's go ahead and say I love it because you say the same things that I do. And I love it when people agree with me, so that's beautiful right there. But what I like is that it's very doable. It's not so much information that you get lost. And I also like that you repeat yourself, because this is a new language for us, and we have to hear these terms again and again. And so the fact that you say this in a couple of different places throughout the book was very helpful for me, and I know it's been helpful for our wellness consultants. And I'm going to go ahead and give a shout out to Brandon, who read this. I think he was out of the country when he read this, and he took it upon himself to actually create a quiz for the wellness consultant. So he's being Dr. Apgar, which I love, and he did a wonderful quiz that all of our wellness consultants will now be taking, that's based off of this book. So to all you who are watching, don't hesitate to come in and purchase this book, and she's here for book signing today, which is amazing, and we'd love to take advantage of that. So right now, as it stands, what role are you playing in the cannabis industry? Like, how can patients use your intelligence and your guidance?
Well, I do a lot of educating. I try to talk to doctors in the area. I do CMEs for hospitals on cannabis medicine to try to have more patients have doctors who, even if they can't make recommendations, that they could at least support their patients in the decision to use cannabis. I do evaluate patients. I'm licensed in DC, Maryland, and Virginia, and I evaluate patients in my office. I would say most of my practice is chronic pain, but I see a number of pediatric patients with seizure disorders or diagnosed with autistic spectrum disorder, pediatric patients with chronic pain. I have a fair number of Ehlers-Danlos patients.
Yes.
Mitochondrial disorders. I would say about 40% of the practice is chronic pain. Most of my chronic pain patients come in with a medication list of about 8 or 9 medications. Generally speaking, over the course of 6 to 18 months, we can get that medication list whittled down to maybe 1 or 2 meds.
Give it up, girl. Is that not the coolest thing?
It is.
You know, it's interesting. I know that you've had a varied career as I have, but guys, I'll say this. I've said this a million times. but cannabis medicine has been the most rewarding medicine that I've ever practiced. And I used to pull babies out of women and bring new life into the world, and that was fairly remarkable and extraordinary. So I'm really lucky and grateful to be a part of this and to be able to help so many people, and I'm so glad that you are here to help, because we are certainly going to use you as a resource, and I know our patients will as well. So do we have any questions?
We do. We have a question. What's the one thing that has surprised you, Dr. Frye, the most working in this field?
What is the one thing that has surprised me? I would say the degree to which some patients with chronic debilitating illnesses improve. The improvement, for instance, I have a myasthenia gravis patient who was in a wheelchair for 2 years, who had a feeding tube because she couldn't swallow, she couldn't protect her airway, so she was constantly getting things into her lungs, who had to decide every morning whether to take a bath or do something else because anything zapped her energy. And after 4 months on cannabis medicine, she was out of the wheelchair. Subsequently, the feeding tube was pulled. She is now eating, traveling. Her whole life has changed. The degree to which the quality of life of so many patients improves has been mind-boggling.
I mean, it's the most powerful medicine we've ever seen.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing in traditional medicine can give patients that kind of dramatic turnaround. I mean, nothing that I've ever witnessed. So that's a great question. Thank you for that. So listen, Dr. Frye is going to be here or at least for a few hours. I can't say all day, because believe me, we would monopolize you all day if we could. But I know that we have patients that are anxious to meet with you and to get a copy of the signed book. And obviously I could talk to her all day long. So we'll go ahead and wrap up. But again, thank you so much for coming. We're so excited that you're a part of this industry and that you're such a great resource for us.
Well, thank you. It's really a pleasure to be here, and thank you for having me.
Good. All right, guys. Well, we will see you next week. Take care. Have a great Monday. Bye-bye.